Alright, this is a walkthrough of the Tomahawk Sounds Big Hands library. This library is powered by Kontakt, which means it actually works in the free player. There's no time limit, it won't run in demo mode. It's designed to work specifically with that if you don't have the full version of Kontakt. Also, one of the other benefits is that it loads up in the Libraries tab instead of just being in the files somewhere on your hard drive. And then, you've got to find it every time you want to load it up. It's actually all right here. So let's start here. I'm going to load up the DZD setting, which is my favorite. So here's the interface. We've got your standard tone controls, reverb, all the usual stuff you would expect on a guitar amp. Let's start with this help button right here. It's the easiest way to kind of get started with this plugin. So when you click help, these bubbles pop up and kind of show you the deal. The easiest way is just to punch around and it'll tell you what each key is doing. So we've got the chucks here. It's like a downstroke, it's an upstroke, it's a tighter one, downstroke, upstroke. These orange keys right here are slides. We've got different variations here. Pick's great. Makes my skin crawl. So that's the kind of thing you would do typically before, coming into a big section or whatever. So then we've got these chucks, which I showed you. This black key right here, I'm going to come back to that. These next row of green keys, these are all the downstrokes, which is going to be the typical main starting point here. These red keys I'm also going to come back to. Let's look at this details button right here. So ring out. The primary mode, the way I have it set up, is so that when you hit a key, when you hit a chord, like let's hit this F, it rings until you stop it. If you don't like that, you can turn that off and it'll only sound while you're holding the key down. Personally, I like the ring out on. It allows me to figure out the chord progressions without having to mess with sustain or anything like that. So with the ring out though, the way you kill the chord will hit it. This B flat up here, this pink key right here, red, whatever it's supposed to be, that actually kills the chord and triggers the release noise. So this black key right here, well, let me show you this first. The release volume, I'm going to turn this all the way, we'll turn it all the way up so you can really hear what it's doing. That's the release sound, that squeak. If you want a more hi-fi, like polished kind of sound, you could turn that all the way off. And when the chord ends, there's no release noise. Put that back on the default setting. I actually like how that sounds. It gives it a lot of realism. So this black key right here, if you hold it while you kill the chord, so let's play, here's a F. I'm going to hold the black key down and I'm going to hit the kill switch. And it's a slide off. Oops. So you can hear the chord sliding off instead of just abruptly stopping. So this fall off speed right here, that's what affects. I'm going to turn this all the way down so you can hear what it's doing. This will make the slide off last a really long time. So that's obviously ridiculous, but you split the difference here like that, or you can have it slide off very quickly. And again, the release volume will affect that as well. We'll turn this all the way up so you can really hear it. And the sliding off quickly. Let's slow it down a little bit. Yeah, that's loud. All right, we'll put all this back on the default thing. The slide speed, we'll go back to these orange keys here. So that's the normal playback speed of that particular slide. We can slow that, again, all the way down. We can have it go really fast. So that works with all these slides. So with this knob, you can kind of dial it in depending on the song, the tempo, and what you're going for. You can come up with pretty much any variation you would want. The reverse speed, I'm going to come back to that. First, I want to talk about this upstroke layout. So these green keys, they're all downstrokes. And you can see, let me go ahead and turn this upstroke layout, turn that on, and then I'm going to hide this window so we can see. When I hit the key, that's a low C, it tells me I'm doing a downstroke. Well, when I have the layout on version 2, what it does is it sets the upstrokes of the same chord 2 octaves up. So there's that, and then that. That's the upstroke. You can see the up light up right here. You can hear the difference between those two. Another way, if you don't want to mess with having the upstrokes 2 octaves up, some people don't like that. You can also, with these pink keys, this first one, I'm supposed to call it red. That's technically red. This G here, if you hold it while hitting, so here's this low C. Now I'm going to hold this red key right here while I hit the downstroke, and that makes it an up. I'll close this so you can see. So down, then I'm holding this G key, hit it again, that's an upstroke. So when you want to have an upstroke, you can do it either way. You can hold down the G while hitting these green keys, or you can put it on layout 2 and just play the upstrokes on the higher octave. It's all depending on what you prefer. So this other, let's look at this other red key right here, this B. The reverse speed. So when you hold down this B right here and hit any of these downstrokes, it actually plays it in reverse. So the default setting is it's a 4-bar swell, which is pretty long. You can change that to 2-bar. Or 1 bar is even quicker. So with that, it's kind of cool. All right. So the other thing, this is in stereo. It's the stereo setting. This fist here, you can drag it to the left. It's only the left side, right, and the right side. And so you can automate this fist, learn MIDI CC, and, you know, that way, like if you want to, if you have some cuts, or there's a lot of different things you can do, but you can automate it to it's a lot easier when you draw in the automation than to play that live. But so that's you're hearing the DZD setting, which is a diesel. It's a Les Paul going into a diesel with a decent amount of gain. So this particular, that tone, for me, it works great in a mix. It sounds distorted, but you can still hear each note. It's not just a wall of white noise. If you want a more distorted thing, the best way to do that is, let's load up this DI here. I'm going to get a new track going. So the DI setting, let's load this here. DI, we'll go stereo again. So that's just the direct guitar. Now we'll load in an amp sim here. Not included, I have to say that. You can use whichever ones you like. I've been messing around with this S gear from the Steven Slate bundle, which I love. Let's load, I like this setting here. So this is, so it's kind of an over-the-top, really fizzy, Another thing you can do, let's load this other one, Texas Driven Clean. So, got the down and the upstrokes. Yeah, and the DI does the exact same thing with the panning. So what I was saying earlier with distortion, sorry I got distracted there. With distortion, we've got this diesel setting. In fact, the easiest way to show this, let me program a chord progression here. So I've got a drum pattern here. Let's get something going here with this diesel amp. Oh, another thing I'll go ahead and explain here. Excuse me. Go right there. So the velocities. This chord here. So the hardest velocity, all the way up, that's the sound of hitting the strings really hard. So I typically only use that for the downbeat, like of a chorus, because part of the sound of a guitar that I love is when you hit it really hard, it'll go a little bit sharp, and then it'll settle back down, and it's kind of an explosive kind of sound. But if you use that on every chord hit, it just sounds, it kind of sounds out of tune, and it doesn't sound natural at all. So I typically use that for the first chord, and then after that, bring the velocity down a little bit to the next one down, and that's it'll sound much more natural. So see what's happening there. Yeah, then I'll pull these over here. See what this sounds like. Nice. Pull that down. So we'll just repeat this a couple times. Okay, so with this DI setting, a lot of times what I like to do with the DI, let me go back to this fizzier sound here. I'm going to pull this MIDI track down. So this is only the DI with this amp sim. Now let's hear this. It's pretty fizzy, but I like the sound of them together. Another thing you can do, consolidate that, drag it an octave up. Let's hear this now. It makes it pretty thick, pretty huge. Another thing I want to demonstrate here. So right now we're hearing all downstrokes. Let me just get back to just this one pattern right here. So this is only the DZD setting, and these are all downstrokes. Let me make sure my layout is set how I want it. The upstroke layout, yeah. So the upstrokes are 2 octaves up. So I'm going to make some of these hits upstrokes. Let's do this one. Do those two. So I'm going to drag these up. I'm going to pull the velocity down a little on the upstrokes. So let's check this. So it's kind of a subtle difference, but it does sound a little more. That's how a guitar player would play it. Let me hear this by itself. Yeah. Let's pull this down. Let's hear it with the amp sim setting as well. Yeah, I mean, that sounds pretty large. And that's just drums and just the big hand setting. There's no bass, no keys, programming, or synth. So that's what that's capable of. Let me show you real quick the mono settings. So typically for power chords, I prefer that wide stereo thing. If you want just a single pass, we have these mono settings. Let's pull this up. So this is a mono instrument track with a mono instance of Kontakt, and then we've got big hands. Well, yeah, let's just do it with the DI. So mono 1 is only the left side of what the stereo plays back, and then mono 2 is only the right side. So typically when you would want to use this is if you want to maybe, with the DI, if you want to have a different amp sound on the left than the right. So you could load the mono 1 and make sure that track is hard panned left, and then we would load the mono 2, DI mono 2, and that would be hard panned right. And then we could load whichever amp sounds we want. Let's go guitar rig here. Just load up AC30 here. Let's see what this sounds like. We'll do the same pattern. Then on the other side, we could load sort of high watt here. See what this sounds like. And then we can hear these all together. I have a feeling there's a lot of guitars. It might start to sound a little mushy. Yeah, that's a lot. One thing I want to point out with these DI settings with amp sims, some amp sim plugins don't keep the stereo image correct when you load it on a stereo track. So we've got the DI up here. We have the stereo DI setting loaded. So when we add an amp sim, we need to make sure oh, that's multi-channel. Messed that one up. It needs to be on multi-mono. Let's go to, where did they put it? Harmonic S gear. That way the left and right stay correct. One thing I've noticed on Guitar Rig, if you load it in stereo, even if you do the multi-mono, it doesn't keep the left and right. The image gets weird. So if you're going to use Guitar Rig, that amp sim on the DI settings, I would recommend loading the mono instances and just hard panning them. All right, that pretty much covers it. If you guys have any questions, email me at support@tomahawksounds.com. Have fun.